Hello everybody. Hello. Welcome to today's class. I remember my last class we had a bit of a talk about HTML. We introduced HTML as a course. We had a lot of, discussions on the fundamentals of HTML. We didn't actually do much coding. We just talked about the introduction of HTML. I think in our next class we're going to talk a lot about HTML tags. So right now we are in HTML tags, and I also want to let us know some of the objectives which we're going to have before we move on. We're going to go straight into it. No time to waste. Yeah. So by the end of this class, I'll expect you to one, understand what HTML tags are. So this is the first thing I'm going to expect you to understand by the end of this class. The second thing I'm going to need you to understand is knowing common HTML tags. Just knowing common HTML tags and what they do. So this is what we're going to do. Then also being able to write, you know, a simple HTML page. So a simple HTML page and give basic instruction to the browser on how to structure and display content using tags. So now, I know that some of you have, or has had like a background in graphic design or any kind of design, and you might have known about presets. I don't know if you've heard of presets before. Anybody who has a design background can tell about presets. You said that presets are like a string of like settings and information that's given to a piece of design, which can apply automatically. For example, I can say, let me say a designer can say, okay, when I apply this preset to this design, make the text bigger, make the font family, let me say Georgia, make the color red. Those are presets. HTML tags are kind of like presets for coding. When you bring them in, you can apply them to a piece of content, and it basically just uses those instructions to map out that exact thing on that piece of content. So that's what it does. So first I'm going to go on to just quickly put my number one here. I don't think I added it in. Okay, so let me just okay. So we said that these are the objectives now we're trying to learn today. So now we spoke about HTML tags, and before I go straight to HTML, I think it's going to be fair to have a bit of a throwback, refresh our memories of what HTML was. So we said that HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Remember, we kind of had that discussion all the way over here. Hypertext Markup Language. We also said it tells the browser how to structure content and display it. We also said that it's not a programming language, that it's a markup language. So we said all these things. I'm not really going to go that deep into that. If you want to, know about this stuff, you can go into the last video and check them out. So now HTML tags, as I said at the end of the last class, are the building blocks of HTML. Just like how we have like, a noun which is just main things. If you hear the word cow, you know what a cow is. Hear the word goat, you know what a goat is. That's what tags are. They are used to identify a piece of content. The browser, like for example, my Chrome browser, use them to identify content based on the instruction it was given. That's why they use the word tag. Just like if you go to the supermarket and you want to buy something, so you check the tag to see what it is. That's what the browser does. Because in the end, if you come over to our code editor, I'm going to come over to our code editor here. So I'm going to make this slightly bigger. I'm going to come over here to our page we're using. Okay. Okay, it's not this page. Okay, this page here. When you come here, this is a header. Now, this is a header is a piece of content. It's text. And no matter how many times you write text, it will always be seen as text. This is a tag. It's a tag or a label. You can call it a label. It's a tag. And basically what it does, it gives this an identity. It tells the browser, if the browser is looking through all the content, it tells it, don't treat this text like a normal text anymore. Treat it like the attribute or the features assigned to this tag. So in this case, H1 means header 1. So we're just telling it, make it bigger, make it bolder, make it larger. And we saw the output of this in our last class, where when I opened it up, it was much bigger, as you can see here. It was larger than the other one because of, again, the instructions given to it by that header tag. So let's just, break that down so that we understand that. So we can see HTML tags. I would like to write this down. HTML tags are or can be seen as special keywords that are wrapped in angled brackets. These are angled brackets, just in case if I would like to explain what they are. So they are wrapped in or wrapped inside angled brackets. So an example of it would be, so an example of this would be H1. We spoke about this. So H1. This is an example. And I'm going to make this example an entire string of examples. I'm going to give it and I'm going to give you their meanings there. So the example. So H1 means header 1. We have P, which means paragraph. So when you use P instead of H1, instead of treating the content like a header, you treat it like a paragraph. You can even test that now since we're all about live classes. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write P tag. I'm going to put this is a header. So it's the same thing as this. It's the same content. The difference is that this is using a P tag instead of H1. I've said that P represents a paragraph. It's even written here in our Visual Studio Code that P represents a paragraph. So if you go down here, of course, we save it. Control S to save as usual. We come down here and put it. You can see that it's treated that way as a paragraph. Normal text. Of course, paragraph is normal text. That's why it looks identical to this here. So these are just ways in which I can explain how HTML tag defines and allows the browser to identify what a content is. So even though I wrote the same thing 3 times, it can identify each one unique to it. So I'm going to come back to our notes. I'm going to look through some other ones. So let me say H2, and this means header 2. Strong, and this is for bold text or highlighted text. So let's try this out. Let's try out our, this is strong. Let's see. I'm going to replace this with strong. Yes, I'm going to replace this with strong. Good. So let's test it out and see what happens. This is it as it was. This was the P tag. When I refresh it, you can see that it, first of all, it brought it down because it behaves differently with pictures. But if I can take off this image here to explain this better, so I'm going to take off this image so it can come up. You can see that it's now bold. It didn't get bigger, it didn't make it physically larger, it just made it bold, made it highlighted. So these are ways in which HTML tags can label content, so that even though it's the same thing right here, the browser looks at these tags and understand that, okay, this means for apply these features to that piece of content. So let's just make that, you know, open to all of us so that we won't have any confusion as to what HTML tags are. So now it's not just on a basic. I think I want us to also note this down. So HTML tag tells a browser what the content is, not necessarily how it looks. So it tells it what it is. It tells this browser that okay, this content is a paragraph. This is an highlighted text. This is a header. This is a picture. This is a video. So I just felt, just bring that out there so that we know. For example, I said the text is a paragraph. So these are just important rules. Now I'm going to come down to the types of tags because there are two types of tags, and I want us to also get that out of the way. So, so as I said, there are two types, or I guess in this case, you can call them structures. There are two ways in which HTML tags are written. Now, HTML tags are written in two structures, which are number one, the open and close tag, and number two, the open or void tags. So, open and close tags, open or void tags. I think we need to really understand what these two are so we won't mix them up. We have the open and close tags, and we have the open or void. Well, in this case, I'm going to call them just void tags. Like I call them open tags, whatever makes you comfortable. But I'll stick to void tags in order to really differentiate the two of them. And open and close tag. So this is the type of tag that does not have a closing tag. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake there. That does have a closing tag. So this is the kind of tag that has a closing tag. Now, what do I mean by closing tag? Basically, every every tag has this structure when it's being written. So we have a bracket. Remember, they always come in angled bracket. A tag can never be written without angled bracket. So we have an angled bracket here. Let me say H1. And then this is the opening tag. And here we have this slash. So same angled bracket. There's a slash here. Very important. And then we also write H1. And we put our closing angle bracket. This is our closing tag. And whatever goes inside here is content. So if we can divide this kind of tag into three sections, we have the opening tag here, we have the closing tag, and we have content. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why do you need to have it this way? Why do you need to write it, then put the again with a slash and put the content between? It's so that you can tell the browser where to stop applying that tag. For example, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to take off this strong. I'm going to just write a piece of text. So this is a piece of this is a paragraph that should not be treated as a header. Yes, as a header, and should be small. So now I'm going to save this and check it out in the browser to see how it looks. As you can see, it's small. It's a normal paragraph, it's normal English, it's normal text. But if I come back here to my browser and I go over to this closing tag I have here and I take it off and I save it. So we have just an opening tag with our content, no closing tag, nothing. If I save this and go back to our browser and refresh, as you can see, it keeps applying it. It doesn't know where to stop. So the browser just keeps looking and keeps going and keeps making everything that comes after a header, even though this should be a paragraph that shouldn't be treated as a header. So the closing tag basically tells the browser, stop. So this is where it's telling the browser, you can start here, start applying the qualities of a header, and then we put our closing tag to tell it, stop. Stop here. You can stop applying it so that the next content can be treated as something else, either another tag or even just plain content, and it will be affected. So if you save this, go back to our browser, refresh, as you can see, it's now treated normally. So that's why we have it. That's why we have this kind of tag structure, opening and closing tag. Remember, we have the opening tag here and we have the closing tag right here. So now I gave some examples here, and the first example I gave is my header. So you can see it here, header one. This is the header. The content is whatever is written in the middle, and this is the closing header. And I said here that the H1 is known as the opening tag. I said it over here. I also said while the slash H1 is known as the closing tag. So again, it's very important that you guys get this fundamental principle because HTML tags don't exist randomly. They follow a structure. And this structure, it needs to be kept and adhered to. If not, it's going to, make the browser behave in weird ways that you really don't want a browser to behave. So I'm going to give you some examples of opening and closing tags. We have H1 already. So I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to put a point here. Another example. We'll come down here. I'm going to put p tag content. Oh, this is a paragraph. As you can see, we close it. I can give you another one. This is a bold text. And again, we can close it. So these are examples of opening and closing tags. That's why they call them it's the name. Now, one thing I always tell my students, I think they should just use this avenue to, I should just say it out to you that programming is very explicit, it's very neutral. When something looks and sounds a certain way, it's probably that way. The people that develop most of these languages, they try their very best not to make it confusing, even though it is a confusing concept. So they make the name to be as explicit as possible. Opening and closing tags basically means this is opening and closing tags. That's what it means. And as I said, things like p tag, which is paragraph, is used to define paragraph. So we're just putting out, normal text paragraph like that. Headers are used to define headers. So these are just opening and closing tags. Now the second one is our open slash void tag. I'll move this down for the sake of structure. So we're going to have some more examples of this here. So let's see another example we have here. We're going to add another example will I use. Okay, let's say our this list item is used for declaring list. You might not really understand it now. So content goes here, and of course it closes. We can add another example if you want. We can add let me say body. Now again, you're not going to understand most of this full website content goes here, and then we close it. You might not understand what each of these tags means. We're going to go into the meaning of most of these tags in a later video. I want to just explain what HTML tags are and make you understand them. So now, open or void tags. I'm going to call them just void tags to avoid confusion. So void tag, this is a tag that doesn't need a closing tag because it doesn't have content in between. Remember, the key differentiating factor that you can use most times is this. There is an opening tag, closing tag, and mostly have content in between. And so the closing tag is used to tell the browser where to stop. But in this case, it doesn't have content in between because not all kinds of content needs to be written like text. Some contents are files. Yes, you might want to upload a file, a document, or your passport to a website. Some contents might be pictures. You're not going to write them down, they're not text. In that case, they use things like this. They are just opening, there's no closing tag. The browser and the programming language automatically optimize to know where to stop. So they don't need anything to close them. And a very good example of that is what we did earlier, which was to add an image. So we're going to add an image here again. So as you can see, this is the bracket. I can take off this. These are attributes. We're not talking about them yet. We'll talk about them in the later video, but this is basically what it is. Once I can get my VS Code to stop misbehaving. So sorry, sometimes my VS Code do its own thing at times. The AI tool attached to the Visual Studio Code, the code editor, it likes to behave on its own at times. So this is a tag for an image, and you don't need to close it. There is no, like most cases, you don't need to add a slash img like this. Even though technically if you add it, it won't really do anything, but you don't need to do that because there's no content in between. Whatever content is happening is going to happen inside here using your source. So in this case, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to add our image, and so if you save it, go to our browser, you can see the picture is there. So if you notice in this piece of code, there is nowhere where I need to write there is content here. There's nowhere like that. So because of that, I don't need a closing tag. So that's why it works the way it does. There's no content. It just takes the image folder and looks for that image and displays it. So that's how open tags work. I'm going to give you an example. An example of it is our image. We just talked about it now. Image. And they work. Another very notable thing about void tags. Void tags usually work or usually works best with HTML attributes. Now, I know I haven't spoken much on attributes yet, but I promise we're going to get to attributes in a bit and we'll get there. Both of them is going to make sense. But they work best with attributes because they don't use content. So they work best with attributes like this, which is source. And basically what it does that we can look at it this way. So we have an image tag here, right? We have come back here to our code, we have an image tag. And what this image tag does is used to represent an image. It's telling the browser that a picture is supposed to be there in the website. Now, just like how your H1 tells the browser this is the header, or your paragraph tells the browser this is the paragraph, your P tag tells the your P tag tells the browser that this is the paragraph. The image tells the browser that this is a picture. But the issue now is that even though your image tag tells you the picture, it doesn't show the browser where the picture is. The picture in this case, this is my documents folder. This is my HTML class, the folder where I store all the files for this class. So I come over here to assets and image. You see the picture there, this same picture. So now, it's just like you can imagine it as giving direction to a friend. You want your friends to come visit you your house to maybe have a sleepover or something like that, and you want to give them descriptions on how to find your house. So telling them something like, okay, when you get to this junction, stop here, take bus to this close, when you get to this close, or maybe you get to this precinct, you'll see a road leading to the left. And get there, you see a T junction, take the left of the T junction, go down, then look right, you see a blue house. On that house, the number on that house is number 3, so and so street. That's my house. Knock on the door. That's exactly what this means. This is source. It's an attribute that and attributes. I'm giving a bit of a spoiler here. But attributes basically give more information to tag. So we all know that this image tag tells the browser there's an image here. What SRC, which the full name is source, what it does is that it's first of all it's mandatory. As you can see here, it's mandatory for it, and it basically helps the browser to find that picture. So in this case, it tells the browser, okay, go to assets, a folder called assets, which if we come over to um from our folder here, you can see assets is there, it's a real folder. Then when we double click it, we're going to get in there, I'm going to see, it's going to say, okay, now check a folder called image. If you come here, you can see we have that folder, image. Then once we're there, it says look for a picture that is named. Very important. Everything must align. The folder must be correct. It must use the same name, it must be the same structure, and the picture name must be correct. Also the file extension. In this case, I have a .png file. If we come back here, we can open our image and we'll see it and it's a .png file. So Your browser looks through all those folders based on the instruction given to it in code, and it pulls out the picture. If even one thing is wrong, it's like giving someone like directions to your house and that direction is not correct. Person gets lost. So in this case, let me say instead of writing image, let me say I write images. Now we all know in my folder that I have no folder named images. Folder name is image. What's going to happen is that the browser is going to enter assets at there. But when it gets to assets, it's going to look for image because that's it's going to look for sorry, it's going to look for images because that's the folder name that I have here, images. But it's not going to see images. It's going to see just image. And so you're going to get confused. And once you get confused, you're going to crash. You're not going to do anything again. So if I save it and I go back here and I refresh, the picture doesn't show anymore. It just shows this small, anybody who has had bad network before can identify with this. It shows this small icon, which shows that, okay, a picture is meant to be here. This shows that the image tag works. A picture is meant to be there, but it can't find that picture. It's looking for the picture, but it's lost because when it got into the assets folder, which is this folder, it was told to look for images, but it can't find images. It's like having directions that tells you, okay, when you get to the end of the road, take a left. And you get to the end of the road and find out that there is no left. That road is a closed. There's no left, there's no right. You just get lost. So because it's lost, it stops working. It doesn't know what to do. It just stops. But then if I go back there, or if I come over to my image tag, or sorry, my image folder, and I change it to images. So I changed the one folder to images, meaning that right now there's a folder named images. If I come back to my browser and refresh, as you can see, the picture is back there because now when it checked, it actually saw images and proceeded as normal. Same thing with the picture inside. If I come over to the picture inside here, it's named pic. If I change the name to my code to say pics, add an S there because S always makes everything better. And I, it's pic here, but I made it pics here. If I come back to my browser and refresh, it's no longer there because again, it's looking for something that's not there. So since it cannot find it, it won't return anything until you put the correct file path. So that was just a bit of a run over of how void tag works. Now we have a lot of void tags. We have image, which is that we have input, which is also another void tag that works with just another void tag that works with attributes, in this case type. And just like the last one, we said that attributes are used to add more information to a tag. And this is going to make a lot more sense down the line. But we said that, for example, let's say in this our website now, we want a small form, just a short form where the user can add their name. We can come over here to our code and we can add our inputs. And the type means what type of input is the tag. And what it does is it tells it, okay, tells the browser like, okay, this is the data field. We want the user to add a piece of information into the site. So the input is a portal for the user to input that information. Forgive me if I'm sounding redundant, but again, it's very explicit. It's a data field, like opening a form or opening like a form space where you can fill in something. And the type here basically means what kind of data is being entered into the browser or into the website. And this time is text. So if I save this, come over to my browser and I refresh, you can see it here. We have text. We don't just need to have text. We can have different kinds of let me say input type. We're gonna make this fine. So if we save it, come down here, refresh, you can see we have another one. And this basically allows us to select a file like that. I'm sure you guys have seen this before in sign up platforms or when you want to add your passport or upload a document, that's it. If you want to change, you can also add something else. So let's say checkbox. Let's say you are creating a form and you want to select between yes or no, or select something. As you can see, you can create a checkbox. If you don't add a checkbox, you can also create another input and make this date. And we put as date. As you can see, it opens the calendar and now I can select a date. I'm sure again, it lots of forms where you are doing things like putting your birth date or stuff like that, or putting in arrival date or booking date. You have seen something like this. So these are different kinds of data forms or different kinds of data that can be entered into a website. You can upload a file, you can add an image, you can add a date, you can even add a number. Yes, you can add a number. I don't think we'll go through that because we don't want to make this video too long. You can add a number. And what differentiates all of them is the type. The type of data you're adding into this one is a text. Type of data you're adding into this one is a file. Type of data you're adding into this one is a checkbox. Kind of data you're adding into this one is a date. You also make another one. I kind of data you add, for example, might be password. So if you come here, save it, and refresh, you have another box here, just like this last box. But unlike this one that shows everything, this one hides everything. Password. So these are just ways in which close tags or void tags work. There is no additional content or no additional English to be written, and they usually use attributes to provide their content, and therefore they don't need any kind of slash input or anything of that sort. They don't need that. Even though it might be suggested by VS Code, I promise you they don't need it and they're not used. So I hope that from this class you can at least understand. Let's go back to our objective. I'm hoping that from this we can at least get a basic understanding of what HTML tags are and also get a common knowledge of what one of the common types of tags is and what they do, and also write a simple HTML page. So we're going to go more into this in the next class. I don't want to push in too much, info into this class and confuse everyone. We're going to go more into that in the next class. But I want to go through some examples of HTML tags that we have. So we have doc type HTML. I'm going to type it out into our browser, of course. Again, I would suggest in a class like something you have your system beside you so that you can also follow along. So this is doc type HTML here. And doc type HTML basically declares the document, tells the document, or tells the browser that, okay, this document is a HTML document. You treat it like an HTML document. That's just what it does. You come here to our VS Code and check it out. We'll see that it gives that description over here. So it's just a document declaration. The document type is HTML. Another popular one we have here is let me say things like head. We have other popular ones like body and much more. Which in our next class we're going to explore most of these tags, the most commonly used tags. We're going to play around with them in our next class. So our next class will be more code centric, more code focused. In our next class, I'm going to have the hope that you understand the basic on like have a basic understanding of what tags are so that we can go into more, raw coding or more markup writing to understand it better and kind of decide. Now, I'm going to drop a disclaimer alert. It's going to be a bit difficult to master all the tags that we have and know which tag is open and close and which tag is void. Only experience can give you that. But what I'm going to recommend is that you go straight to W3 Schools, w3schools.com. It's literally one of the world's biggest websites for learning coding. You can basically learn how to use every single kind of tag we have here. So every tag, I'll suggest that throughout the duration of this class, for everything we teach, I want you to come here and pick something and learn. It's very straightforward. You can start from introduction. So you can come here, introduction, and you can see most of the things we teach is here. HTML stands for hypertext markup language. It's a markup language for creating web pages. Describes the structure of the website. Consists of a series of elements. Tells the browser how to display content. labels the piece of content. For example, this is the heading, this is the paragraph, this is the link. So all these things are out there. Things like how a simple HTML document looks like. We're going to go more into this after we understand what tags, attributes, and elements are. But I also want to have, I want you guys to have a bit of initiative and practice. Read up on this. If possible, in the comment section or in my private chat for those who are handling personally. Challenge me, send me some questions. It's always fun to have somebody send me out of the blue questions. And we'll have fun like that together. So thank you so much. I'll see you all in the next class. We're going to be having more in-depth practical application of HTML tags before we move on to HTML attributes.